Welcome to this week's episode of Birth Words. Today I'll be talking with birth videographer and fellow podcast host, Sarah Asay, host of the Birth Circle podcast. And we'll be talking about capturing stories through video.
Welcome to Birth Words. Words are powerful. What are you doing with yours? In this podcast, birth doula and applied linguistics scholar Sarah Pixton invites you to be intentional, reflective, and empowering with your language as we come together to honor those who give birth. The work of Birth Words is to elevate the language surrounding pregnancy, birth, and the postpartum period. Nothing in this podcast should be taken as medical advice.
Welcome to this week's episode of Birth Words. Today I'll be talking with birth videographer and fellow podcast host, Sarah Asay, host of the Birth Circle podcast. And we'll be talking about capturing stories through video. Welcome, Sarah, to the Birth Words podcast.
Thank you.
It's so fun when I have guests whose name is also Sarah. I think that you are the third one.
Sarah's are always awesome.
There are plenty of us to go around to share the greatness. So I wanted to talk today with you about video. And we had this interesting conversation before we started recording about how different people think in different ways and different people capture meaning in their lives in different ways. And some people, like your host, myself, think in words all the time. I don't even know how to categorize something as a thought if it doesn't come with words. And like they're spelled out and they better be spelled correctly too.
With grammar, correct punctuation.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to be,
Are you really correcting your own spelling in your head? Can you not complete a thought if you don't know how to spell the word you're trying to think?
Well, it's not that extreme. Okay. But, just a little running transcript or subtitles or whatever. So Sarah Asay, not me, Sarah, was saying that she doesn't think in words. She thinks in colors, images.
Colors, pictures, and movement.
Colors, pictures, and movement. So naturally, she's a birth videographer because she thinks in and captures colors, pictures, and movement. We've also had some interesting conversations over the last few months as Sarah and I have gotten to know each other better, where it's very clear that I don't think that much in colors, pictures, and movement. Like when we're capturing video and I say, how about 8 p.m.? And she's like, well, the lighting's not really great then.
Yeah, I didn't know that people, I never thought about the way I thought until I read this article and it talked about, that people think in words like there's a constant dialogue or monologue, not dialogue, then that would be a different problem, a constant monologue in their head. And I thought, the only time I have words in my head are if I'm like, oh, I should have said this, or I'm going to say this next time that person does, or I'm trying to like compose an email or something in my head. That's the only time there are words. Every other time it's movement, colors, pictures, and emotion is the fourth layer. Okay. And I build.
Wait, emotion or motion?
Emotion.
Oh, because you said
motion
movement.
And emotion. Yeah, okay. Movement and emotion. Yeah, my words. There's no words.
So I was thinking about this a little bit and wondering, okay, like how does that fit in with what I'm doing with birth words and different theories that I'm familiar with and things like that. So I thought about this guy named Lev Vygotsky. He's a Russian educator, philosopher. I don't know off the top of my head, from several decades ago. He's been around for a while. Well, I don't think he's around anymore. But his influence has been around for a while. A lot in the field of education. And he developed what's called sociocultural theory, which he says that when we learn, it's from interaction with others and that we use language as a mediating tool. So when we learn a new concept, we use language to go from like outside to inside. But language isn't the only mediating tool. And so I'm wondering if maybe for you...
Oh, yeah. And for me, when I struggle with language...
Right. What's your mediating tool between a new concept you're trying to learn and how you internalize it?
Pictures, movement, color, and emotion.
Okay.
Yeah. So if I were trying to understand, like what you just said, I had to put that all into colors and emotion in my head to understand what you said. So everything has to go through a translation process. So if I'm trying to explain something to somebody else, I prefer to use pictures, colors, movement, and emotions. And so I guess I fell into videography very early. I started when I was 22, and it was just, I kind of fell into it and I loved it. And I loved being able to show emotion and tell story through the visual aspect. How's that for some great wording?
That's awesome. I love it. Okay. So I want to talk about birth videography and how you use as your mediating tool to like capture this experience, right? Because you can never actually recreate a birth experience.
No.
We try with birth stories, which capture different facets of it and are a great opportunity for reflection and giving permanence to something that is otherwise fleeting. But let's talk about another way to do that, another mediating tool between this experience and your future of trying to remember it and make sense of it.
I love that.
So let's talk about videography and how it can do that for somebody's birth experience.
Yeah. Well, I know from the start that having your birth film helps you reframe your birth story, helps you heal, and because you catch nuances. I know even for me watching my birth film, I was shocked to see that my birth was when in my mind I thought I was screaming. And so to see that from the outside, I was like, oh, I wasn't actually screaming. You're in a completely different world when you're especially unmedicated. And so being able to see yourself from a third party view is really cool for the mom to see all the people around her supporting her and loving her, nurturing her, and then to see her own strength and to just mesh her internal experience with the external view of what she looked like. That is so healing for women. I know that for sure. But as a storyteller, as a filmmaker, I love capturing the moments of birth that just that don't have words. And as you can see, I'm a very non-articulate person. But for example, I love to capture an angle of, go with me here. I put the camera up by her ear, up above her head, and I'll shoot through her hair, through her ear, down her neck to show the muscles flexing with the surge, and then down onto either her arm or down if she's in a tub of water. And that's one of my favorite clips to get of my clients because it shows her strength as she's taking it from her head, her mind, and her heart, and she's sending this energy down. I don't know how to explain, it's a podcast, so how do you describe that? But I just love, and sometimes I'll get the shot of a mom when she has a surge or contraction, you see the ripples of the muscles on her belly. Now, you could just take a picture of it, or you could take a video. That's cool with the iPhone. That's awesome. But the way I like to capture is through a very, what we call shallow depth of field shot. That's when the forefront, what you're focusing on is really clear, and then everything behind is super blurry. So it's kind of like, think flower porn, how they get those, the flowers photographed and everything behind is super blurry. That's what I like to do. And I like to explore visually those muscles moving. And I think it's fun. But it also just shows without words, the strength, the absolute power that this woman has to bring forth life.
Yeah. I mean, okay. So they say that a picture is worth 1,000 words, right?
And a video is worth everything.
I know. I was going to say a video is like, 1,000 to the 10th power.
Yeah.
Because, wow, I'm seeing, as you're describing, with words, which is leaving out a lot of what happens in your videos, just this image of, see, I can't think without words. Well, wow. It was because you mediated it with language for me. So thank you. But I can just imagine the power and the beauty that can be in those kind of images. And it makes me think about your role, like you said, as the storyteller. You're being that mediator for her because she can't see herself, like you said, from that external view. You're playing this role kind of like language plays for people of telling a story that is
Ooh, I like that. I'll go with that.
Separate.
That sounds,
okay. She was nodding slowly, and I wasn't sure if she was going to reject it or go with it. So I'm glad.
No, I mean, because I don't think in words, I've never really been able to, in words, analyze what I do and why I do it.
Mm-hmm.
But I just know that when I see what I see and I film it, and then I watch people watch the films, and I watch their actions towards themselves and their own births after they watch these
Mm-hmm.
films. I call it like Inception. You can't unsee an empowered birth.
Mm-hmm.
You can read all the empowered birth stories you want. You can read all about informed consent, all these, how to pick a good midwife articles, but you can't unsee these things. So it's going beyond, well, I wouldn't say beyond, because language is amazingly powerful and I can enjoy it. Like I love reading great poetry and Shakespeare and stuff like that. But it goes beyond sometimes words, and it penetrates to the being of people.
Yeah. Cool. I love it. That's really fun. So I always end my episodes by asking my guests if you had to summarize your thoughts on the subject, either birth generally or what we've been talking about today, in just one word.
Oh gosh, that's so mean.
What word would it be?
Summarize. You mean the having a video at your birth?
Birth videography, yeah.
Yeah, Inception.
There you go. There you go.
Can't unsee it.
That'll be clickbait for this episode.
Yeah,
we'll
Inception.
title it Inception. Okay. Do you have any last thoughts about birth videography, the role that you play as a storyteller?
I just say be cognizant of what you see around you, and sometimes when there aren't words, at least coming from my frame of reference, when there aren't words to describe it, it doesn't actually minimize the feeling or minimize the meaning of it.
Well, and I think that often, especially in birth, there's so much that goes beyond language and our ability to capture anything with it. And I've been thinking about doing an episode about silence at some point, but just
the whole episode's going to be silent, because that'd be great.
Yeah, it's going to be the easiest one I've ever recorded.
Playing. Yeah, silence.
But yeah, about how sometimes silence itself communicates that something's going on that's beyond the power of words to capture or explain or bear witness to.
And I've heard people say that, like holding space. That's another word.
Yeah.
Way of people saying silence, right?
Yeah. Anyway, cool. Thanks for talking about this with me. If our listeners want to check out some of your beautiful birth videography, what's the best place for them to find it?
Never unsee my birth films. It's thetouchoflife.com. thetouchoflife.com. And I have them all in categories. You can see hospital births, home births, birth center births. I've yet to do a car birth. That's on my bucket list.
They don't normally get the videographer there for the car birth.
I'm hoping for it. I drive behind him to the hospital sometimes going, just pull over if we're going to have a car birth so I can be there. I still play, but not really.
All right. thetouchoflife.com.
Yep.
All right. Thanks for joining me, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you.
If you're interested in sharing your ideas or experiences on the podcast, go to birthwords.com. If you're liking what you hear, please leave a review on your podcast app. For more resources about language for a better birth, subscribe to the monthly newsletter at birthwords.com and follow Birthwords on Instagram and Facebook.